In this video, we will look at LemonSqueezy. LemonSqueezy is a payments processing platform which is built specifically for software products. So if you are trying to sell some kind of software, LemonSqueezy is the best platform to do so. Why would I choose LemonSqueezy over something like Stripe? Because it has some cool features such as licenses and a much more cleaner interface than Stripe. When it comes to taxes and stuff, you don't need to figure out a lot of stuff. LemonSqueezy already has that for you, and it's as it's already built for software, you do not need to worry about all the different noise which appears in your Stripe dashboard. It also makes selling software very simpler. If you don't want to create your own website, you can just share around your link and sell your software. But if you want, you can also go deep and create your own site and do all of that stuff. It's pretty interesting. So let's get into the tutorial. So we are at the LemonSqueezy site. You can see it says payments, tax and subscriptions for software companies. As a merchant of record, we handle the tax compliance burden so you can focus more on revenue and less headache. So it's specifically built for software. It's just mentioned here, and let's go ahead and click on sign in, and let's create our first project, I guess, or we could call it an organization. So it took me to this dashboard, so I was doing some testing here, so I already have one, but I'm going to create a new store here, I guess. So let's find a way to create a new store. Yep, and new store. If you don't already have a store, it will automatically ask you to create a new store. So I'm just going to click add new store. I'm just going to name it Atharva YT store, and I'm just going to change my country to India. But if you are in a different country, make sure you set your own country, and let's click on create new store. Perfect. Now it's going to show all of these settings, but we are in test mode, so we don't necessarily need to do all of these. So let's just go ahead and create our products. So to sell something, you need to have a product here. So let's create a new product. We are just going to create a new test product, and we're just going to add a description as like this is my test product. Perfect. And now you can have different kinds of things like single payment, subscription, pay what you want, like they can set the price, or even you can set the price at the back end. But we are going to use single payment because we just have to touch the surface. We just have to look at the basics, and then you can always look at LemonSqueezy documentation and make things work. So let's click on single payment, and let's select the pricing model. So let's look at the options here. We have standard and package. Package, I think it's for more than one product. So I'm just going to click on standard pricing. For the price, it's in my currency, so I'm going to set it to, I think so, 1,500 rupees. Make sure you respect your currency, like I mean, it's test mode, it doesn't really matter, so you just do whatever you want. Then you have tax category. I think this would be important in live mode, where you have to like sell something, so you just have to categorize this. So digital goods or services excluding ebooks. Then we have ebooks as a separate category, and then we have software as a service. So I think I'm just going to use digital goods or services for this one, but make sure you put your category here, because in live mode I think this is going to be very important. Then you will have the media. So it says add up to 10 images for your product, used to represent your product during checkout. We don't need it. And upload an unlimited amounts of file to your product. Your customers will be given access to them after purchase. So whatever things you have which you are trying to sell, you can simply put them here, and it will be sent to your customer as soon as they have completed the payments. Then you will have variants and stuff where you can have different kinds of license, like size, shape and stuff. You can set it up. We will need the variant ID when we are dealing with the code, but we can also use the default variant ID. So if you want to skip this step, feel free to do so, but if you want to customize, you can go ahead and do so. It's not a problem. Then you will have generate license keys. You can do so if you want to, but I'm just going to keep it disabled for now. And yeah, show this product on your LemonSqueezy storefront, I guess. Yeah, let's just leave that. For email receipt, we can enable it. You can have a thank you note. You can have a button link, you can have button text and stuff, and you can simply publish your product. There's a lot of customization here. You can simply dig into it and try to find which settings you can play around with to have the best experience for your users. We just have the basic settings so that I can show you how the basics work, and you can always build on top of that. So we have this product right here. So if we go into these three dots, we will see two different IDs. So one is an ID and one is a variant ID. So here the variant ID means the specific variant of the product, and the ID normal means the product ID. So a product can have different variants, and different variants will have different IDs. So yeah, this is how the product system works in LemonSqueezy. Alright, so let's create our new application. I will be using Next.js because they have support for API routes out of the box. So if you want to use something like the combination of Vite and Node.js, feel free to do so, but since Next.js is easy for a tutorial purposes, I am going to do that. So I'm going to use pnpm. So pnpx create next app, and I'm going to name it LSYT. Stands for LemonSqueezy YouTube. So I'm just going to hit enter. Now we will be asked for configuration. I will not use TypeScript for this tutorial. Let's leave everything else to default, and let's wait for our app installation to complete. This should not take a lot of time. Let's wait. Perfect. Now let's go to LSYT, and there's only one package we need here. You can even eliminate that if you want to, but I want to make things simpler. So I'm going to install pnpm. We are going to install Axios. So pnpm install Axios. Axios is a library to make HTTP requests, and we're going to create a config file that sets a base URL for all the stuff, and yeah, for all interaction with LemonSqueezy API. And we also need another package. I'm really sorry for this one, but we are going to need a package called as server only, which makes sure that a file is always run on the server side. So yeah, now let's do code dot and open Visual Studio Code. Perfect. Let's get this to full screen. It's going to lag a bit. I really got to replace my machine. Perfect. Now first things first, we need an environment variable file. So let's create .env .local, and now first thing we need is LemonSqueezy API key, which we will get from the dashboard. So let's go to the dashboard, and here we are going to go into the settings and in the API section, and we will get our API key right here. I already have one, which is pretty strange. I don't think I had one for the store, but anyways, I'm just going to delete this one and I'm going to create a new one. I'm just going to name it YT, and please do not use my API key. I'm gonna delete it anyways, so don't even try. It's just going to waste your time. So let's go back to our code, and I'm just going to paste this API key right here. Perfect. The second thing we need is the store ID. So LemonSqueezy. This does not need to be private, but since we are like abstracting all the payment related stuff to our backend side, so we are just going to make this environment variable private. So we are going to have the store ID, but if you ever wanted to get this like public, you can always do so by prefixing next public. So yeah, so let's go ahead and how do we found our store ID? I think it was in general, so let's go there. Strange. So let's find how we can find our store ID. I think it was right here. Alright, so it was in the stores tab, and we have all my stores here, and the store we are looking for is this one, Atharva YT store. I'm just going to copy the ID without the hash, and we're just going to paste it here. Now there is one more thing we require, which is the webhook signature. So whenever somebody tries to make a payment on a website, and whenever it is successful or even failed, or I would rather say when an order is created, LemonSqueezy will try to ping our endpoint to tell us that, hey, this person has tried to create an order. And the way to verify if the request has been sent legit by LemonSqueezy and not by an attacker is by verifying the signature that LemonSqueezy sent us. So how does this work? We have a secret, which is basically a password which only you and LemonSqueezy knows, and using that password you can make sure that the request has been sent by LemonSqueezy or not. So yeah, let's just have a password here. We will go into the details later. So we are going to have LemonSqueezy webhook signature. Oops, I can't type. And we are going to have anything. You can literally have anything. I'm just going to have the most secret. Yeah, like it just works. We will deal with webhooks later, but first let's make this thing work. All right. Now let's go into the SRC folder, and let's create a new folder inside the SRC folder, and I'm going to call it utils. And inside utils, I'm going to create a new file called axios.js. And this will contain our Axios configuration. So I'm just going to import Axios here. Import Axios, autocomplete, thank you. And now we can start creating our instance. But first of all, we need an base endpoint. So LemonSqueezy has this endpoint, which we can always contact. So I'm just going to say export const, exporting just because we might need it later, but it's fine if we don't. So LemonSqueezy endpoint. And the endpoint is HTTPS, not the one which is suggested by Copilot, but yeah, api.lemonsqueezy.com/v1. Perfect. Now this is the API key. This is the API URL which we are going to call in every single request we make to LemonSqueezy. So let's create the instance. So I'm just going to say export const instance. Actually, I'm going to name it LemonSqueezy API instance. To be more specific about this, so we are going to create a new instance using axios.create. Oops, I can't type today. And we are going to have the base URL here. Hello, autocomplete. Yeah, LemonSqueezy endpoint. I just wanted to make sure that the base URL is like the URL is all uppercase or not. Yeah. Now we also need some headers which are provided in the documentation. I'm just going to save a lot of effort from your side. I'm just going to copy and paste these things. So yeah, the accept and content type headers are something that LemonSqueezy requires. And authorization, this contains your API key, which we are pulling in from our environment variables. So yeah, perfect. All right, now we are going to create a new API route which will handle the purchasing for us. We will look at the UI after this. So in we are using the app directory for Next.js. If you're using pages directory, make sure you follow that format. But since we're using app directory, we are going to create a new folder here. I'm going to call it API. It should be named API, by the way. I'm sorry if I said that I'm going to call it API. It literally should be called as API. Now we can call some folder. So yeah, now I'm going to call it purchase product. And inside this, I am going to need to add a route.ts file. Sorry, we are not using TypeScript. I almost forget every single time. Oops, it's hard. It's hard at the JavaScript. Yeah, anyways. Now, first thing first, we need to export a variable. So export const dynamic. And the value needs to be force dynamic. This tells Next.js that there is no caching involved at all. So don't ever cache the response. And next thing we are going to have is the actual request handler. So we are going to make this a post handler. So it is going to only handle post requests. So let's do that. So export async function post, and it will have a request object. And let's open the function. Now we can do a try catch block right here, and we can do console.error. Whenever there is an error in this block, we don't know what it is, so we're just going to return that it's an internal server error. So let's do response. And since we're using Next.js, this is just the way of sending responses. But if you're using Express, you might have like a response variable inside of your handler or something. But here we are just doing response.json, and we're just going to say message an error occurred. And the next thing we are going to have is a status, which we are going to pass in a 500, mentioning that it's internal server error. Now we can work with stuff. Now let's get the data from the post request. So const data, request data, and then we are going to have request.json. I hate when these handlers do not when these handlers do not have any like types in JavaScript. You need to like just figure out things if it works or not, and it's pretty bad. If you're using TypeScript, it's going to be much easier, but this is how it works here. So in JavaScript, so you just say request.json, and all of your body will be converted into an object and will be set into request data, whatever I named it. Anyways, now the first thing we want to check if there is a product ID provided. So this is going to be a very dynamic route. So if that you can just pass You can just call this endpoint and just pass in your product ID, and it will just return you with an URL which you can make payment with. But yeah, so if there is no product ID provided, we must throw an error. So let's do that. Request data dot I guess product ID. GitHub Copilot is being too annoying right now. So yeah, then we need to return a response. So return response dot JSON, and we are going to have a message. Product ID is required. Thank you, GitHub Copilot, for once. Hello, what happened? Yeah, the status should be 400 as in bad request. Perfect. And now we can make our request to LemonSqueezy thing. So how do we do that? So let's go to the documentation. So this is the documentation API reference for LemonSqueezy. They have two different documentations. One is a help documentation and one is an API reference. I will have the API reference in the description below. This is what you will need. I think the documentation is a little confusing. I think they can improve a lot here, but yeah. Now what you need to do is click on read the developer guide, and we can go on taking payments, and we can get a gist of what we need to send to LemonSqueezy. So if you're using a post request to the if you want to get a checkout endpoint, so creating checkouts with API, you just need to use this request. I would have liked if they had buttons to change languages, but it's fine, we can still work with it. So we need to send this data. So first of all, let's port all this data to a code, and we need to send it to /checkouts, right? So we already have these headers, so let's not worry about it. We need to send it to /checkouts. So let's go let's go back to our code, and let's go beneath this line of code, and let's say const response is equal to await LemonSqueezy instance dot post, and we are going to post to /checkout. Since we already have the base URL, we do not need to have the entire URL. And now we will have the data. So in the data, we are just going to pass, and we're just going to paste it in, and we're just going to save it. Now this is the data we are going to send. I know this does not look pretty at all, but what this means is that in data you are passing in all the things, and which is related to your request, and the type of this request is checkouts. In relationships, you need to pass in all the data of your specific LemonSqueezy instances, like your store ID and your variants. But instead we need to edit it here. So for stores, we need to have a store ID. So let's have process.env. Let's go here and copy the store ID. Perfect. And now we can have in the variant, we are treating the variant as a product ID here, because typically you will have different kind of variants with different. Anyways, if you want to rename this to variant ID, feel free to do so. I'm just going to let it be product ID. So we are going to replace this with the variant ID, so which is actually the product ID here. So let's do that. We are going to do request data dot product ID, and since this is going to be an integer, we are going to convert it to string. I also have doubt that this might be an integer, so let's convert it to string, because LemonSqueezy only accepts strings here. Perfect. And now when we have the response, we will need to console log it out to check it out. So let's do console.log response. Perfect. Now let's try to figure things out. Let's create a new request here. So we will go to our Thunder client. We'll create a new request. We don't need the release notes, and we will make a request to HTTP localhost 3000 /API/ what was it again? It was purchase product. Perfect. And now we need to pass in all the headers and stuff. Actually we do not, because we are handling it internally. So we need to only pass in the body. This needs to be a post request, and it needs to be a JSON. So we need to pass in a product ID. Let's get our variant ID from there. So let's go to store. Let's go to products. Let's copy the variant ID. I'm treating this as a separate product. That's why I had named it product ID. So yeah, Hello. Yep. Paste it. Let's send this request. Connection was refused by the server. Let's go to the terminal and see what's wrong here. Oops, we haven't even started it. Yeah, classic dev mode. Yeah, all this time we have been coding and we haven't even started the server. It's like crazy. Let's wait. There will be actually no response, but we got an 500. That means something is wrong. Oh yeah, that's because we didn't send any response, but even the request failed, which is interesting. Let's see what's wrong here. Bad requests. Oops, 404. Oh, it should be checkouts. Yeah, dumb mistake. So let's go back. Let's send this request again. 500 again. I wonder what it is now. All right. Yeah, the thing was, it wasn't really an error. I was trying to log the entire response thing, but we only needed the actual data that was returned back to us. So what I did was took out the checkout URL, which we will see the structure right now. And I just console log the response data. So let's look at the response data. Where is my terminal? So yeah, this is the response we get. So we have the data inside it, and then we have the attributes, which has a lot of different things. And we have the product options, checkout options. But the main thing we need here is the URL. So this is the unique URL which your user will use to pay, and we will pass this to the front end for them to make the payment. The cool thing why we are the thing with here is why we are using this because we need to pass in custom data. So like what traditionally you can do is you can simply go to the dashboard for LemonSqueezy and generate a URL and share it. But what we want to do is we want to attach custom data with this specific session, and we will get that data back when the user completes the transaction. So how do we pass in custom data here? We can do that by adding a new attributes section here. Attributes. I cannot type today. And then we can have, okay, let me give it a comma, and then we can have custom data. Oh, actually this needs to be checkout data, and then we will have it. So checkout data, and we will have custom here. This is the format you need to follow, and then you can have any key value pair here. So for example, if you have authentication session active, you can find your user ID and you can just plug it in here. So yeah, but in this case I'm just going to hard code it because we don't really have a customer ID here or user ID here because we haven't implemented authentication or something. But just feel free to do it. It's just going to be just plug in the actual user ID, and you will get the user ID at the webhook side when the order is completed. Perfect. So this is done. Now we can simply go ahead and try again. Let's send it. We will get, oops, we are getting some error. Oh yeah, I know why we are getting an error, because this should be a string. Key value pairs, the value should be a string in this case. And let's send it again. Now we have the checkout URL which will be passing to the front end. Now let's also check the terminal for one last time. Oopsie. Yep. Now we will also have this checkout data, which is an object which contains everything which we have, which is user ID. It's not printing it out. I just wanted to show you that the checkout data is here. So that means that it has accepted it. So perfect. Now we can actually make payments. Now we are also passing using response.json, and we are passing the checkout URL. Now let's enable the front end to make calls to this API and make the actual payment. So what we are going to do is we are going to use the page.js file. We are not going to go into a lot of details, but I'm just going to remove everything from here. We do not need everything. We just need the main tag. And I'm going to have a button here. I'm just going to copy paste. We do not need to focus a lot. It's just going to perform a buy product one function which we are making right now. So let's create a new function, const buy product one async function. And my typing speed has been so bad lately. This also will have a try catch block, and we will also have an error here, so we can simply pass in this code and we will just alert when there is an error. We will do this try block right now. So we are going to do const response. The difference here is that we are making an API call to our own API, which is the Next.js API route. So we are going to do await axios. We are going to import axios.post, /API /purchase product. The data we are going to pass here is product ID. So let's go ahead and get the variant. We are going to copy the variant ID and we are going to pass in it here as a product ID. Yeah, let's just do it. Fine. I was thinking about something else, but I think it's just fine. Let's just console log it for personal thing. If there is some kind of error, we can easily debug it. But the next thing we want to do is we want to redirect the user to the checkout URL to complete the payment. So we can do window.open and we can say response.data.checkout URL and we will pass in blank so that it opens in a new tab. Perfect. Now whenever this button is clicked, a new tab will be opened where the customer can do his payment. And yeah, and if you have anything set in your product like sending through email, those things will be sent directly to their emails. So yeah, this is how it works. Let's go to a browser and test it out. So we will go to localhost 3000, waiting for it. It's going to take some time. Oh yeah, this needs to be a client component. So we are going to use client. I want to make an entire video on this use client stuff, React server component in Next.js. I think it deserves a video of its own, but yeah, let's go back and we will have this button. So let's click this. Let's see what happens. Now a new tab has been opened. It's loading. Perfect. Test mode has been currently enabled. Now it has an email ID because we are logged in here, but if not, they will get an email ID prompt here. Now for card number, anyways, I think I can blur it out. So I'm just going to type photo, which is the same as Stripe. So yeah, 424242, and then we are going to have 424242. I'm just going to have some random stuff here. I think 4-digit works, and yeah, let's proceed with the payment processing. Perfect. Continue. Now the thing is that the payment has been completed, but how does your website know? How does your servers know that the payment is completed? Of course, you can have like a cron job which like fetches every 5 minutes to see if a payment is done or not, but it's really not that good. So like if a person makes a payment right now, the person might potentially have to wait 5 minutes to see his or her payment reflected, and that sucks. Really. So there is one good thing: you can create webhooks. That means that LemonSqueezy will call your API and will inform you that the payment is successful and that you can enable their services, their paid services. So yeah, let's do that. So let's go to LemonSqueezy dashboard. Let's go ahead and click on settings. Let's go to webhooks. Let's create a new webhook. Now we need to pass in an URL. Now this is a very difficult thing, right? Because we are in localhost, we cannot just pass in localhost here because it doesn't know what our localhost is. So the thing is that we need to use some kind of tunnel. So I'm going to use ngrok. So I'm going to leave a tutorial about how to use ngrok in the comments. Like you need to have an API key and stuff, but I already have all of it configured because it's more of OS related thing, how to install it. So go ahead and check it out. But what we are going to do is we are going to use ngrok http localhost 3000. Let me tell you the reason why we are using this. What this will do is it will give us a link which will be a public link. If we pass into the webhook thing, it will automatically call our localhost. So if ngrok uses the link which is provided here, this will forward all the requests to a localhost. This is how it works, and it's called a tunnel. So if you know tunnel, you know what I'm doing right here. So yeah, let's pass this URL here. For the signing secret, we need to pass in the same one which we passed here in our environment variables. Make sure you just have some really good one, not some goofy one, right? Like I have right here. You will choose some events here, but for this video, I think event order created should be enough. So I'm just going to save the webhook. Perfect. Now I'm just going to click on cross. Perfect. Now the webhook is done. Now let's try to make the payment again. Don't worry, if whenever you want to try it out, you don't need to make the payments a lot of time to just to debug the webhook. You can always resend the webhook event from LemonSqueezy. So I'll show you what I mean. So let's try to make this payment once, and we do not need to make it again and again. Does this work? Yeah. Perfect. Yeah. Now we can go back to our dashboard and we can reload this page, and we will say that we have the response of 200 and this data was sent to us. And we can actually use this data to find out the state of the user. If you can go here, we will actually find in the last meta object, you will have the custom data which we passed when we created the checkout, which is pretty cool. But there's one thing we need to modify. We simply passed in the domain here, but which is not good. We need to pass in /API/webhook, which this is the route we are going to create right now. So yeah, let's save this one. Perfect. Now yeah, let's work on getting the endpoint thing up. So I'm just going to create a new folder here under API, which is going to be called as webhook, reflecting on what we passed in on LemonSqueezy, and we are going to create a new file called route.js. Let me get the code from there. We do not want to waste a lot of time here. This is the entire code for this file. Actually I coded in TypeScript first, so I need to remove everything which is related to TypeScript here. Yep. So what we are doing here is, first of all, we are cloning the request because we want the request as text first, because we are passing it for verification of signatures. And then we are also getting the event name from our request, which is the original request, not the cloned one. So we are getting the header which has the event name, which is basically what event is. So basically, for example, we enabled order created. If you have multiple of those enabled, you would get the exact event name here. Then we have the body of the actual content of the request. Then this part is copied from LemonSqueezy. You do not need to focus how it works. It's a lot of cryptography stuff, but in short, this is just trying to verify if the request is really coming from LemonSqueezy or not by using the secret. So make sure you keep the secret very private and not share it with anyone else, because if they have it, they can probably get around this and pass malicious request to you. And after this point, after this block of code, this request is legit and you can trust anything the data says. So you can check if the event type is order created. You can get the user ID from here, and you can get if the payment is successful by checking the status if it's paid or not. I'm not going in detail of this file because we don't have a database. We do not have specific data to work on. But if you have a database, you can simply plug in your database logic here to make sure that your customer's plan is edited. So yeah, you can simply check out all these data, like you can check whichever is useful for you, and you can fill that in your database. Or you know what, you can simply get all of the data from here and just fill it in your database for later use. And you can simply do the resend thing and it will work out. So let's click on resend and we should have it in our terminal. So if we see the data here, there is some kind of error. There is no kind of response. Oh yeah, we do not have a response yet. So what we will do is we are just going to do response.json webhook received. And I think this is important for many webhooks, because if you do not have a 200 response, they will try to send it again and again, which is very problematic. But yeah, so it's always good to have a response to a webhook. So yeah, now if we send it again, we most likely will have all the data here. We have an error again, which is pretty this is strange. Let's try it out again. I'm going to click resend because we are sending a response. I know for sure. No response is written from route handler. Ensure that you have a response. We do have a response, of course. We are console logging it out and we are sending a response using response.json. So yeah, I figured it out. It should have been returned. We do not need to do this in Express, but apparently this one requires it. So you need to have return before this. So yeah, and it works. If we go back and if we resend it, we can check our terminal and we will have only the data and not the errors because we actually have console logged the body here. And if we go ahead and reload it, first we only have one 200, and now we have two 200s which we just have, and we also see the response which our webhook replied with. So if you have like some kind of things, logs and stuff, you can always pass it through the webhook response and you will see it here. So yeah, this is how you can work with LemonSqueezy. The opportunities are endless here. You can do literally anything you want to. I will have the code in the description below though, in the GitHub repository. So yeah, that's it for this video. In this video, we saw how you can use LemonSqueezy for payments for your software products very easily using Next.js. So yeah, if you have any suggestions, make sure you leave them in the comments below. And please hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, share this video with your friends, and leave some comment below to support me and promote my videos in the algorithm. So yeah, that's it for this video. I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye.